Hello and welcome to the latest installment of PSG Talking. I'm your host Ed, and on today's show, we are talking all about PSG's narrow win over Arsenal in the Champions League. But before we get started, let me thank all of you out there who have subscribed to PSG Talk Extra Time on Substack. We really appreciate your support. Hope you enjoy the content we've been putting out. If you haven't, I hope you'll consider subscribing. It's $5 a month, $50 for the whole year. You get bonus episodes and a column as well. I just had a new piece up there talking about who is to credit for this amazing PSG rebuild. So if you subscribe, you can go ahead and give that a read. All right, joining me today is longtime PSG Talk contributor Marc Damon. Marc, we got to start out because before this match against Arsenal, you were a little pessimistic. You predicted 3-0. That wasn't the case, thankfully. So talk to the listeners. What do you have to say for yourself?
Well, first of all, nice to be here as always. I really did believe that, I looked at it as an issue of the form that PSG were in over the last three matches and the last half of the Aston Villa game. So 3.5 matches of not great form, plus sort of an issue of a matchup where Arsenal had the sort of set piece ability and free kick ability to hurt PSG in an area where PSG clearly showed vulnerability. And I also looked at it as a matter of you're going into the Emirates, which I guess is not that big of a deal after all, but you're going into the visiting stadium in poor form against a team that has the matchup advantage in certain areas and critical areas where goals are usually scored in these types of matches. And I don't know if I was so much pessimistic as much as it was like, I thought that was a realistic possibility, right? I guess of all the possibilities, I thought that was a realistic one. And I guess I do tend to lean towards the negative at times. But as PSG have proven time and time again, they have passed every single test they have been given this season. And ever since December, this team has just continued to have statement win after statement win in home games against Manchester City, on the road against Stuttgart when in a must win. Liverpool, obviously, at Anfield. Surviving an Aston Villa comeback attempt
I was going to say, hang on for dear life against Villa.
And now on the road against Arsenal, a very good Arsenal team. It's a very good team. PSG took a 1-0 lead going back to the Parc. And I think I tweeted this out. There's really not much more you could ask for. This game could have been 2-3-0 PSG if PSG took their chances the way they could. This game could have also been something like 2-3-1 Arsenal if Arsenal were able to sort of take advantage of the moments they had. But at the end of the day, I think the score line was correct. PSG got what they deserved out of that game. And it was a real testament to how this retooling over the last couple of years has really been successful and almost wildly successful beyond anyone's imaginations when it originally started. So we'll get into obviously the details of everything as we go, but big picture, another past test, another statement win. And
well
yes,
said.
if you're looking for me to say I was wrong, yes, I was wrong. I did get, and I'm happy to be. I'd rather be wrong and PSG win than right and PSG lose. I'm not one of those fans who's stubborn like that. Like if I'm wrong, please prove me wrong. I love it. If I look stupid and PSG win the Champions League, believe me, I'll look as stupid as anybody. I don't care.
Yeah. We've been doing this long enough. We've looked stupid plenty of times. It doesn't hurt our feelings. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. But I will say, on my part, I did predict 2-1 win for PSG, which didn't happen. But I thought there would at least be, I think PSG would at least have a 1-goal advantage after this one, which they do have. So I think you're right. I mean, both of these teams are pretty evenly matched. They played really well. They both had chances. Some, PSG took the one they had, and other times they hit the post, and great saves from both goalkeepers. This was a very narrow match. At times it was great football. At other times it was a bit a little bit shaky. So at the end of the day, 90 minutes are up. PSG with a 1-goal advantage. It's what I thought that they would have. I think it's probably what they deserved. I'm pretty pleased with that. Before we get, we're going to go kind of moment by moment in this match, but I guess we'll start before the match. What'd you think of that tifo that Arsenal had up? And I've been watching a lot of Arsenal fan TV videos and all that, and some of their fans will talk about the starting lineups. They want a lot of different changes. So I'm just curious, what did you think of the atmosphere there, that tifo, and then just talk about the starting lineups?
Look, part of the trade-off you get for having lots and lots and lots and lots of money is having those kinds of less than fiery atmospheres. And I'm probably telling you that they have not done one of those. Like the ultras in Paris really do go all out with the tifos, because it's like whatever person or whatever group they have that makes them, like they obviously get a good deal on them, and they obviously put a lot of effort and thought and time into it. They're not
going to Party City.
No, this felt like something you would buy off of Fanatics or something, right? This was a Fanatics tifo where it's like the gunner wasn't quite in the right place. It was a little off to the right. It was, the color wasn't quite sharp and vibrant. It didn't even have words. Like they couldn't even put like words on it. Like
it was just a cannon. It was just the cannon. That's it.
Like how sort of cheapo can you get with something like that? I mean, if that's what you're gonna do, then don't even bother. Like don't embarrass yourself like that. But you know what? I thought going into it was a typical English Champions League atmosphere, which was, unimpressive. And it's not always about like it's a different culture. You know what I mean? Like these English teams, for the most part, are more like Americanized now. Like, you go to an American football game, or sometimes you get a raucous crowd, but a lot of the times the crowd's going to react to what's going on in front of them. So if things aren't going well, they're not going to be cheering regardless. Like PSG will be down 3-0 in a game, and the ultras will still be, doing their ultra thing, right? Like,
yeah,
but you just don't get that in a top English club. You'll get it at like Villa or Newcastle or something like that, where there's still a little bit of that old school feeling. But like you go to a place like Chelsea or Arsenal or Liverpool or Man City, it's just the atmosphere just isn't going to be there for that. And continuously PSG fans will go into the visiting stadium and outshine the home fans, and we're used to that by now. It's part of
the English media. English football fans are always surprised. Like, man, these PSG fans are bouncing up and down in the stadium, and it's like 30 minutes till kickoff or something. Like, they're always blown away that PSG has real fans, and it's like, yeah, we do exist. I mean, you and I aren't as raucous as the ultras, but like they are a good representation of real fans.
But that's not our job. Like that's the thing about ultras. Ultra culture is more than about being a fan. It's like being a part of the team. It's like the extension of the fan base to the team. It's like that, that's kind of how they view it.
Yeah.
And I think there's been times in the past where the ultras have overstepped their bounds a bit, I think, and are not good representations of what the fans believe and what the fans think. But, when the team's good and when everyone's on the same page, it really is an extension of the fans. And if we're going to send 2,500 fans to a road game, I'm sending those guys. That's who we're sending our best and our loudest.
That's right. I'm rolling with the ultras. So, all right, let's get into the match here. I brought up the starting lineups.
Yeah.
We don't need to go too much into it because I think, we talked about this a little bit, you and I think we're in agreement that for PSG at least, this is the lineup. And at the Parc in the return leg, I don't think there's going to be too many changes unless Ousmane Dembélé, who says he's fine and all of that, unless he can't go for some reason, then I think maybe you move Kvara centrally. But I didn't have any major issues with this lineup. It is what it is. We played well with it, so we can kind of gloss over that. But is there anything you want to say about the lineup?
I'll just say that when you get deep into the Champions League like this, when you get deep into a playoff run, your rotation sort of the bench shortens and there's less guys that are getting minutes. Like, Kang-In Lee is no longer getting Champions League minutes. Lucas Beraldo got those minutes only because Marquinhos was out. But like, really, the team is basically counting the goalie like 13, 14 guys deep right now. It's it's that starting 11 plus Barcola, Zaire-Emery, and Gonzalo Ramos. Those are the three bench guys that you're gonna see. Like, I don't think you're seeing Seni Mayulu. You're not seeing
Zaire-Emery, maybe. Yeah, he came in the
yeah, that's why
89th minute.
I
I
put
think
him on
he's
that
on there.
list. Yeah, he's one
Oh,
of
you
those.
did? Okay.
He's one of those three. But like Seni Mayulo ain't playing. Lucas Hernandez maybe is on that list, but I think only if someone goes out, only if someone gets hurt at this point. But that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing at this point because, again, there's 6 games left in the year. You're emptying the tank at this point. You're within sight of a Champions League final. I don't want to rotate. I don't want to sub 5 guys off and on, right? I want to go my best guys plus, our 2 best bench guys for 90 minutes. So I think that's the right lineup because Arsenal aren't a sort of high block, high line kind of team. And I think what we've sort of witnessed over the year is that Bradley Barcola is a great player, but he's not the kind of player that can break down a low block right now. And Kvaratskhelia can do that. Ousmane Dembélé can do that. Desiree Doué absolutely can do that. And if you're going to get a team that's going to play a little bit lower and a little more defensive and a little more countering, you want to have guys in your front 3 that are really good dribblers, really good passers, and versatile and players that can sort of switch and move around. And Barcola is not quite at that level yet as a player. He's sort of a left winger pure, can play right wing, but he's really purely a winger. And him playing false 9 isn't going to work. And if he's not able to sort of run at defenders one-on-one on the wings with a head of steam, him trying to sort of break down a defense has not really been pretty. So I like what they've done with the lineup. And against Arsenal, I
Yeah.
especially like it because the matchup makes sense for Doué and Kvara more than it does for a Bradley Barcola type.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think Barcola, you're right. He is kind of a pure winger. He's more of a specialist. I think you know what you're going to get when you're bringing him on, and I don't think he gives you as many options. That's not to say he can't learn it and can't develop it, and I think that's what Luis Enrique wants. He wants this competition. He likes having these young players who are hungry, and I think, this summer, I think Barcola can work on things, and he can absolutely work his way into this lineup, watching, Dembele playing on the national team and such. So I'm still very high on Barcola, but I think you're right. Kvara is absolutely his work rate, get tracking back. He just offers you a whole lot more. So for now, I think Luis Enrique's got it right, and this is what we're going to see. So Mark, let's get into the match now. It kicks off, and before you know it, what was it? In the 4th minute, you've got Dembele running down, just right down the gut of the Arsenal defense. He finds Kvara out on the wing, who just terrorized Timber all night. And then Kvara, with some slick dribbling, picks out Dembele for a one-time hit. Didn't catch it as clean as maybe he would have hoped, but he gets it on frame, hits the post, goes in. PSG up 1-0. And I would say that this couldn't have gone any better. It takes all of the wind out of the tifo sails there at the Emirates. It takes the crowd out of it. PSG can now relax a little bit. They can play with that lead. I just thought we couldn't have dreamed a better start for PSG. They're a team that always jumps out fast, I think, and plays better when they score. And they just so happen to get it done here. And of course, it's Dembele who's having a Ballon d'Or quality season. So what did you see in that goal? How important was that start? Talk to me about it.
Well, game of inches, as always. It was a really nice movement out of the back. I think it was Nuno Mendes who started it, either Mendes or Pacho. And Dembele gets it middle of the field. And because PSG are so dangerous going forward into space, you had the Arsenal defense really backing off. And it gave Dembele the opportunity to play that ball wide to Kvara. Kvara takes it with his left. And Declan Rice, who was ostensibly guarding Ousmane Dembele, you will see it in the highlight. I didn't even, like yesterday, I didn't even really notice it. I only noticed it today. He bails out to double Kvara on the wing. And Dembele just sort of slips into that space that Declan Rice leaves. And Kvara really sort of with a nice lefty little sweep pass, didn't get it clean on the pass because the ball was bouncing a little bit. But, Dembele, stuff that he hasn't been able to do in the past where he's able to, get that ball on frame, right? Like it hits the inside of the post.
Yeah.
And it's not the best shot, but he didn't sky it into the 50th row like he used to do.
In the first half of the season, that's all he was doing is he would either miss the frame, sky it high, whatever. I mean, he's dialed in. This is what happens when you're in form.
Yeah. But you put it on the frame, David Raya just, it's what, like 3 or 4 inches away from it, and you just get it inside the post. And like, it's a great movement. It's a great goal. And you look at it and it's like, this was a game, and this is a styles match. This is a styles matchup, right? These are two teams that play fairly differently, right? Arsenal are straight ahead, direct. They don't want to play fast. They don't want to, they want to play fast on the counter, but they don't want to play a game where the ball's moving fast and they have to chase it. They don't want to play sort of the high possession game that PSG are playing and high, volume of passes and all that. And in the first matchup in October, they were very much able to dictate the way that game was played. And in this game, PSG were able to then sort of turn the tables and play it the way PSG wanted, mainly because they were able to score early. And when you score early, especially on the road, and I think you saw this in the, since we're recording this Wednesday night, if you watch the Barcelona-Inter match, when a road team gets a lead early, you'll see the home team very much come out and try to respond quickly because you want to get the crowd back into it and you don't want to continue to give the road team that momentum. So PSG get that goal early. And now Arsenal are going to need to play a little more up-tempo. They're going to have to chase the game. They're going to leave themselves a bit exposed. And for the first 25 minutes of the game, PSG's pressing and their ability to sort of surround the ball and not allow the sort of outlets that Arsenal wanted really forced Arsenal into some turnovers. There was some really bad passing by them. They looked tentative. They weren't getting the sorts of clearances that they normally get. And it really allowed PSG to sort of work into the game and get really more chances after that. And I guess we're going to the non-penalty next, but I think that's, those situations are created based off of PSG pressing and turning the other team over. And that's what you have to do in these situations. You got to try to get as many easy, high danger chances as you can, because against a team like Arsenal, who are a very good defensive team and are very good when the other team is settled and they can sort of sit in front and, play their sort of middle block, you're not going to get a lot of chances just passing the ball around the outside and trying to wait for a breakdown, because Arsenal are probably not really going to break down very much. So you have to get it on sort of unsettled situations where you get your midfielders into space, get that first goal. Dembele gets into space, drives the middle, kicks it to Kvara, force the double, Kvara back to Dembele. Or, you turn them over. You force a turnover on a press. You get Arsenal in an unsettled situation, and you try to get a quick goal out of that, 1-2 passes and in. And, long story short, as I kind of go on here, it's like PSG really, for the first, I'd say 25 to 30 minutes of the game, really dictated what they wanted to do. And in the Champions League semifinal on the road, that's a very difficult thing to do. And I thought really the first test that they passed in that game was really controlling the first third of it and really not allowing Arsenal to get anything that they wanted.
I think another element of this is we always talk about there's a lot of pressure on PSG. You know, they spend a lot of money. They've never won the Champions League. A lot of these things that we say that are kind of weighing on PSG also weigh on Arsenal. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, Declan Rice. I mean, what did Arsenal sign him for? 115 million euro, I think, something like that. Jurrien Timber. I think they signed him for 40 million euro, and he was abysmal on the night. I'm just kind of looking through some more of their transfers. So, I mean, this isn't a team full of academy players, and, you know, they've been at this for a little while. They, under Mikel Arteta, have spent a ton of money. And so when they came into this match in the semifinal, I would say that they were the favorites over Arsenal. I think, or over PSG. I think there was a lot of pressure on Arsenal. They were not really competing for the Premier League title. And so they're at risk of spending all of this money and having a trophyless season. I think there was a lot of pressure. And so when PSG kind of punched him in the mouth early there through Dembele's goal, I think they started, you know, the crowd maybe started turning a little bit, and the pressure started mounting, and they miss a couple of chances. And so I think they're going to come to, we'll talk more about the return leg, but I think there's a lot of pressure on this Arsenal team to overturn this, and there's going to be a lot of questions asked for all the money that was spent, why they're going trophyless this season, if that is ultimately the case. Mark, let's get into the next moment of this match. It was the 16th minute. I believe it was Fabian Ruiz, again, plays it out wide to Kvara. They definitely saw something in the film. So they got Kvara the ball, and he does this just magical move on Timber, just cuts in between him and Bukayo Saka. And it certainly looked like a rugby play to me. It looked like Timber grabbed him around the midsection, around the chest there, and there was certainly contact. Kvara goes down in the box. VAR looked at it. No penalty. It looked like a penalty to me. It would have been a little bit harsh, but I think, you know, rules are rules. It's a foul outside of the box. I think it's got to be one inside, but I know you have a unique take on this. So what is your take on whether should have been called or not?
So a few parts to this. One, I think it was a foul. I think the ref should have called it a foul on the field. And I don't necessarily think it's that complicated. I think if that happened if that happened at the midway line and, you know, a guy was breaking away and you put your arm out and stopped him, that's probably at least a yellow in the regular field of play and not in the box. So there's that part. Also, I'm fully aware, even though the referees will never admit it, that the standard for a foul called inside the box is higher than the standard for a foul called outside the box. So it is much harder to foul someone in a way that rises to the level of a penalty than it is to just foul someone at the midway line or, you know, at the other end of the field. So I'm aware of that. In this case, the VAR then becomes sort of the interesting part of this, because I believe that VAR especially in England and especially in England, yeah, I'd say especially in England, I've seen it, where VAR has sort of become like the fifth referee, as opposed to sort of I guess the best way to put it would be, I think VAR should be used only to correct egregious mistakes and not to relitigate judgment calls. And as much as I don't agree with the referee's judgment on that call, it is the referee's judgment. And the referee in that situation is looking right at it. And I'm guessing if you asked him at some point, he'll explain to you why he didn't think that rose to the level of a penalty. So if the referee on the field is making a judgment call based on what they believe to be the set of facts that they're going with in real time, I don't want VAR to come in and go, well, actually, we think that this is actually a foul. maybe you should change it to a foul because we, with the ability of hindsight and 7 different replays that we can slow up to make it even look worse than it is, we think it's a penalty. I don't want the officials to relitigate the game through VAR. And I can't be a hypocrite about that. So while I do think it was a foul, and I think it was pretty obviously a foul, if the referee didn't call it on the field, I don't want VAR overturning it.
And it's all fair, but I guess we'll wrap it up with this. If this was Real Madrid, they would get that call, and that's one of the more frustrating things about the football, that there's a lot of bias that goes into it. Some refs would give that and give it to certain teams, and VAR would give it to some. There's no consistency. I like the way you laid that out, and it would be nice if that was implemented throughout, but we all know that it usually is not.
Well, there was that moment, I will say, and it was, I think, Clement Turpin, I believe. No, it wasn't even Turpin. It was the other French referee, the one that looks like he's a 17-year-old kid who's like reffing all the big matches now for some reason. Francois Letexier, right? I'm saying that right.
I don't know my French referees, unfortunately.
No, it was definitely not Bastian. He's the worst. Francois Letexier in the Real Madrid-Arsenal game, they had that call where Mbappe flops in the box, and they called the penalty, and then they went to the VAR and overturned it because it was so clearly and obviously a flop. That actually, I don't think they even called it a penalty. They didn't call it a penalty on the field.
No,
they had Letexier go to VAR, and then Letexier bravely. I mean, talk about the stones on that. He earned my respect that night because the stones to go to the monitor in the Bernabeu and then say, actually, no, Mbappe's clearly flopping. This is not a penalty. When everything in the world would have told you, call that penalty, send the stadium into delirium, and change the tie, right? So, with that sidebar, props to Letexier for not giving into that nonsense.
Yes, let's give him his props, and then let's
move on.
And let's move on because there was another penalty shout from Arsenal. This time it was in the 38th minute, something like that. Anyway. Merino is in the box. He's played a pass, and he thinks he's got all the time in the world to sort of line up what he wants to do. And then here comes little João Neves from behind, gets to the ball first with his foot, knocks it out of the way, and then Merino kind of goes to kick and hits João Neves, and then falls down and starts all the acting to get the fans all excited. And anyway, they thought they had a penalty shout. For me, it's clear as day. João Neves got the ball first, and it was a great tackle from behind. And I guess the bigger point is it's really nice to have players that track back and play a little defense. It's really nice, and that's a great example of it.
That's such a critical intervention, and that was at a point in the game where Arsenal were really starting to build momentum. And they were really starting to play well. And that was the best stretch of the game for Luis Skelly and Saka and Martinelli. That was probably the best they looked, basically from that 35-minute mark, basically to the 55th minute mark of the second half. They looked like the better team for that stretch. And they looked dangerous and they looked threatening. And that probably was one of the better chances. I'd say maybe if he in other words, if Moreno gets that off of his foot, he probably scores. And if Neves doesn't time that perfectly, it's a penalty because Moreno's clear on goal at that point. I don't understand Arsenal fans complaining about that one because Neves clearly gets the ball. That's in replay, that's not even close. They didn't even go to the monitor. It wasn't close. And it was funny because one of the accounts was like, "Oh, that's totally a foul on Vitinha," and I'm like, first of all, it's not Vitinha, it's João Neves. Get your Portuguese midfielders correctly. Second of all, he clearly gets the ball. I don't even know what we're even talking about with that. That was just a really strong defensive play. And that's the thing.
This isn't like the double hit penalty where it's did he touch the ball? No, João Neves really got there first. There's no debate.
Yeah, there's literally footage of him touching the ball. It's not a hard one to figure,
Absolutely not. So halftime comes. You know, there were some moments. Martinelli had a chance there late on, and Donnarumma made a huge save. So let's get to Arsenal's almost goal, I guess we'll call it, in the 47th minute. They've got a free kick. Arsenal are doing this kind of like orchestrated dance, and PSG are just sort of standing there still. And then it's Merino again, gets a header, scores. And then it's called offside. VAR takes a look at it. It's called offside. You have sent a couple tweets kind of mocking Arsenal's strategy with these set pieces, and especially this one where, you know, when you watch it on a replay, it is pretty comical. It's pretty cartoonish. So what did you see in this one?
Well, here's the thing. I think Arsenal read a bit into their press clippings a little bit, right? Like sometimes in a matchup, you can have such an advantage in one area that you almost overemphasize it in your game plan in a way where it like takes away from the rest of the game. It sort of actually backfires, right? Like you know, if you say like, oh, you know, we have an advantage in corner, you know, if we're playing a basketball game and it's like we're a really good team at shooting corner threes and the other team's really bad at shooting corner threes. So all you do in the game is just shoot corner threes the entire time. And you maybe get like you maybe have an off
Like
night.
NBA Jam, just shoot corner threes.
Maybe your percentage is a little lower than it normally is. I just think you saw it. Anytime basically PSG fouled Arsenal inside of not even their box, like close to their box, like in the opponent in the half, right? Like if PSG fouled that Arsenal like 2 steps over the midway line, they would set up this super elaborate free kick, you know, set piece every time. I think they used like 6 or 7 different set piece plays. And it's like, okay, maybe you should have just played the ball and got on with it, right? Instead of delaying the game for a minute and a half to set up this dance routine you're doing with your, you know, everyone getting a line, and then we're going to swing to the left, and then we're going to swing to the right, and then we're going to crisscross and reverse, and everyone clap their hands. Like it did. It looked like some kind of drunk wedding dance at like 10:30 at night. That's what it looked like at times, what they were doing. And it's like you're doing
The
too
Macarena.
much. It's the Macarena, it's the electric slide, whatever you want to call it. And quite frankly, they didn't have to do all that crap. They could have just lined up, kicked the ball in the box, and more likely than not, one of the Arsenal players would get their head on it because, yes, they are better at set pieces. And I actually think that comical routine that they scored on, in quotes, actually cost them the goal because they weren't able to really get onside because they were all moving up until the kick of the ball. So they had to time it perfectly, and they didn't time it perfectly. And
I don't even think it's a good strategy. Like when you look at the lineup, I also don't know why PSG players didn't just all take like 5 steps forward. If they're all that far back, why not? Right? Just move up. They only had 2 players who were clearly decoys.
No, the problem again was that it's not that they did set pieces. They should have absolutely, but they were doing set pieces from everywhere. They were doing them off the corners. They were doing not just set pieces, everyone get in the box and jump really high. They were doing like actual elaborate, we spent actual time on this set pieces. And it's like, I don't think they have to do that. I don't think they have to trick PSG. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to do that much to beat PSG on a set piece. All you really have to do is just get in the box and jump, and you're probably going to get it. So, like, doing all this extra crap just really, I thought, was more like they were psyching themselves out almost. They were doing too much for themselves. And it actually sort of gave PSG a little bit of an advantage, honestly, because some of these set pieces were so ridiculous that it's like, you know, you're probably laughing at half of them when you actually see them.
Everything about that goal was lame, and clearly it was offsides. And like you said, just get in the box. Our players are like 5'5", 5'6". Like
Yeah,
You're going to get a header more than likely. You don't have to do all that.
no, there's no style points here. Just get the use your advantage. Don't waste your advantage by trying to do more than you have to. And I think from that
Now,
point,
yeah.
almost like like they may have had one more good chance after that. I think that Donnarumma saves. I think it was
on Trossard, which is what I wanted to get to next. Yeah.
It was the Trossard chance.
Yep.
But pretty much, except for that, they really didn't have a lot going. Like PSG reestablished control of the game, and by the end of the game had sort of the two best chances. I think the Barcola one would have been offsides by Ramos when he played him in, but the Ramos one was clean. The one that Ramos hit off the bar. So by the end of the match, PSG were not only controlling the game, they were getting the better of the chances, and it seemed like Arsenal had sort of run out of ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about that Trossard chance because Donnarumma comes up huge. Trossard, I don't know how he found all of this space. I'm not sure where Hakimi was, but it was João Neves was sprinting back trying to cover the space and just was too far behind to catch up. And so Trossard had a clear opportunity, great shot, and Donnarumma, all 6'5" of him, gets down and with one hand, strong wrist, is able to get enough on it to push it beyond the goal so that it went out for a corner to Arsenal. But I think this is the time where we've got to talk about Donnarumma because he was fabulous on the night. Just unbelievable. Could have been man of the match. This isn't the first time either. We've seen him against at Villa. We've seen him Liverpool. I mean, without this guy, PSG would not be in this situation, one match away from the Champions League final. He still hasn't signed that contract extension. My biggest worry now is it's going to cost, the price is going up. PSG could go after Lucas Chevalier and, they could spend all the money and it probably just as much to re-sign Donnarumma and then you don't really know what you're getting. How is he going to perform? We know that Donnarumma can get it done at Anfield on a knockout Champions League night. So that's just something I don't think we just want to throw away just for maybe the promise of a young up-and-comer French goalkeeper. I think the only reason maybe you look at a player like Chevalier is if Donnarumma, maybe the reason he hasn't signed the extension is, does he want to go play for an Italian club? If that's where he sees his career going, so then maybe he forces that, and then we're back to square one with goalkeepers. So, Mark, let's get into some questions before we get out of here. We've got Grayson Lee. He's at Grayson Lee 39452. Great friend of the pod's been on the show before. Yep. He says, how do you think the team is going to deal with Merino moving back to the front line due to Thomas Partey's return? Of course, Partey was suspended for this match, and I've been listening to a lot of Arsenal stuff, and they're really counting on this guy when he comes back, that he's going to make a big difference. I've got my thoughts. I don't know if I totally buy into that, but I'm curious what you think to Grayson's question. How do you think PSG are going to deal with Partey coming back into the lineup?
Well, I think it helps Arsenal to have a bit of more of a target man because they were playing false nine sort of the way we were playing false nine with Saka, Trossard, and Martinelli. I think putting Moreno up there probably helps them. Partey is a really good player, but also I'm curious if he's going to make that much of a difference based off of how PSG like to play from the wings. And if Arsenal are really trying to throw bodies forward, I don't know if he's going to be able to single-handedly prevent PSG from scoring, a counter goal, which is basically what they need to do. They need to probably very least get one more. I'd say bare minimum they got to get one more, preferably get two. But, I don't think that Partey's just like, this isn't like, putting Prime and N'Golo Kante into the lineup and like if you told me that Arsenal were getting Prime and N'Golo Kante for the second leg, I'd be pretty nervous. But I think Partey's a good player, but he's not, oh my God, this is the guy that's going to completely shut down what PSG are trying to do. Obviously, Arsenal are going to have to make adjustments because they did not play very well. And I'm assuming that they're probably going to play a little better in the second leg. But I think conversely, PSG did not play their best game either. And I think it's fair to say that PSG have more that they can do. I think they can be a little bit cleaner in some of their midfield stuff. I think they can be better at finishing, obviously. And I think that they can be better at sort of generating chances throughout the game. I think you saw a lot in those first 30 minutes, and then at the end of the game, but there was a long stretch there where PSG were sort of chasing their tail a little bit. So I think this was a game where both teams can sort of go to another level. And the question then becomes, is PSG's better level, higher than Arsenal's? And I'm starting to think that it is. So if that answers the question, I think it'll make a difference. I think Arsenal will be better, but I also think PSG will be better.
Yeah, 100% agree. Thomas Partey he's a fine player. He's going to make Arsenal better. Am I scared of him? Is he going to score goals? Maybe, but I'm not overly worried about him. I just don't think he's going to negate what PSG does really well, which is attack you on the flanks, like you're saying, Hakimi and Mendes and Doué and Dembele. We just have so many speedy attacking players that are just overlapping at all times. I just don't know what a Thomas Partey. I don't know what any team really can do with, like you said, maybe Prime and N'Golo Kante could step in and maybe slow this down. But outside of that, I just great. Party's coming back. Okay, he's going to make you a little bit better. Wonderful. We're just going to do what we do, and I don't. I'm not overly concerned about that addition to Arsenal's team. Just not.
No, it's hard to.
Yeah.
It's very hard to see how that's going to lead to Arsenal scoring probably 3 goals, which is probably what they're going to have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You never want to assume, but I would hope that in a Champions League semifinal, second leg at home, that PSG could at least score 1 goal. You would think, that's the bare minimum, right? Like, they're probably Arsenal are going to have to probably score 2 or 3, which is doable. But they haven't been a team that scores a whole heck of a lot. They're not Barcelona. They're not a team like that where they're just going to score in bunches and attack you and attack you and attack you.
They did do that to Real Madrid. They did score 3.
But again, look at the 3 goals that they scored, right?
Yeah.
2 set pieces, 2 free kicks, and a goal at the end of the game, basically. Like, they didn't like overwhelm Real Madrid. They didn't, it wasn't like they had 80% of the possession and they were pinning Real Madrid in their own end the whole game. They played the way that they know how to play, and they took advantage of the situation. And they got 2 really special free kicks. So I just don't see Arsenal being that kind of team that's just going to blow you out of the water offensively. Like, not in their current form, and not with sort of the way PSG are playing with the kind of focus and intensity that they're playing with. I just don't know if they're going to have the ball enough to have all those chances and get a high volume of chances. It comes down to PSG not shutting off. 95 minutes of pure unadulterated focus.
That's what it's going to take, and I think for Arsenal, they're going to have to maybe deploy some of that Aston Villa style where they're just going to have to just bomb forward and hope that they don't get caught on a counter as the match goes on. If they're not able to score, I think that's what we're going to see, and they could cause PSG some troubles if they do that. We've seen that PSG can get overwhelmed. Marquinhos sometimes can be a little suspect there at the back, so hopefully it doesn't get to that and PSG can score a couple before it gets, and we can just kind of see the game out and get ready for the final. So that's the way I see it going, but you never know. Mark, next question is from Mame Paname. They ask, if Dembele is out for the second leg, I kind of hinted at this earlier, what alternatives could Luis Enrique consider?
He's not going to go. He's not going to go Gonzalo Ramos. He's not going to do that. It's going to be Kvara as the false 9, Desiree Doué on the right, Bradley Barcola on the left. That's the move. And I would be okay with that because I think Arsenal are going to have to be a little more aggressive. So I wouldn't mind having Barcola there and they did this in the second leg against Villa, right? They started Barcola and it worked, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They scored 2 counter goals. It worked. So I think putting Barcola out there, I wouldn't even be against doing that, even if Dembele is, let's say Dembele is like 90%, right? I'm not wholly against doing that and putting Barcola out there to start to see if you can steal a counter goal early in the game or at least make Arsenal have to sit back a little bit knowing that Barcola can burn them. Right? Like
it could be a good Barcola game just for that. You're right.
I'm not
Yeah.
against it. I think it worked against Villa until it didn't. I think once you got, and I actually think he got him out pretty quick, but I don't even think, like even if it's for just the first half to get a counter goal and then bring, Due and Dembele in to like be a little more solid on the ball. Like there are different tactical things that they can do. And it really all comes down to what game do they think that Arsenal are going to play. Again, Arsenal are only down 1, so they don't have to really come out and be ultra aggressive early in the game. So it's possible that they just, PSG just say, all right, we're going to ride the same lineup. And we're going to expect a similar game, and Arsenal are going to try to hit him on the counter or hit him on a set piece. And there's no reason to panic because there's a 90-minute game left to play. And maybe when it gets to the 65th minute, maybe Arsenal, if they're not tied by then, they start throwing guys forward, and then you bring on a fresh Bradley Barcola. So it really is a chess match. And what, Luis Enrique has to anticipate what Mikel Arteta is going to do and how they're going to come out tactically and sort of set his team up to best, work with that.
I completely agree. I at the end of the day, I think Dembele he's going to start. He's going to be in the starting lineup. I don't think there's any way unless
I think so too. Just for the record, I think so too.
He's going to be there, and if so, he's definitely going to start, and we're going to go with the same lineup. We're going to stick with what we know, see how the game goes, and if he kind of is feeling another kind of twitch in his muscle and he's got to come out, then we've got Barcola. We can shift things around. Yeah. If we've got to pack the midfield, Zaire-Emery can come in. So we've got options. I'm not overly concerned, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. And then, the last one is from @thatdudephil, just said, could we have another second leg Aston Villa nightmare? Will the pressure get to PSG? I'll go first on this one, and I don't think the pressure will. I think that they're playing with house money. They're a young team. They seem to be on a mission. I just love the attitude of this team. They don't seem pleased with man of the match trophies. They get really angry when the other team scores. They are just determined. We talked about João Neves tracking back. This team is on a mission. I don't know what Luis Enrique is saying behind closed doors on the training pitch, but whatever it is, it's working, and this team is on a mission. And I do not think if they didn't capitulate against Liverpool, if they didn't fall apart in that match against Aston Villa, they are certainly not going to fall apart 1-0 at the Parc. They may lose, but I don't think it's because they are overwhelmed by any kind of the pressure. If they lose, it's because they got beat and Arsenal played a really great game and they deserve to win. That's the only way I see this one going. What about you?
Well, the default, obviously, for any fan when their team loses is that they choked, right? Like that's you either A, blame your own team, or B, blame the refs, right? Like it's very rarely do you ever say, oh, the other team just was better, right? And like, there's a situation in this, there's a possibility that Arsenal just come out, execute their game plan, shut down PSG's attack, get 2 sort of cheapish kind of goals and win 2-1 and go to the final, right? And everyone will be saying, oh, PSG choked. And it'd be like, no, not really. Like, Arsenal just came out and played really well in a way that they're very capable of playing against the top teams in Europe. So it wouldn't surprise me if Arsenal came back here. But I think there is something to pressure in the sense that I don't think they felt it against Aston Villa until it was 5-4. And I think once they started feeling that pressure, I think they responded to it well. I do. I think once they figured out, oh crap, this team could really, tie this thing and take us to extra time. I think PSG locked in and really played a great last 25 minutes of the game. But the pressure we're talking about now is like, it's not, oh my God, am I going to screw up pressure? It's like, you're so close to the thing you want. And sometimes when you're close, you lose focus and you start thinking about what it would be like to play in the Champions League final. You're 60 minutes in, you're 70 minutes into the game, and you're up 1-0 or you're up 2-1, and you're like, you start to allow yourself to maybe think about what's next, right? What's the next thing we're going to do? We're going to go to the final, and we're going to win the Coupe de France, we're going to win the treble, and I'm going to live my dream, and all that stuff starts creeping into your head the closer you get to the finish line, which is when it's the most dangerous, right? Like the most dangerous moments in these games will be 82nd, 85th, 87th, 88th, 90th minute, where you're right at that finish line. You're thinking about it, and you just slip up and you make one little mistake. And that's where this is why it's the most brutal competition, I think, on earth when it comes to like a team sport, right? Like it is a crucible of the best players in the world with the most pressure and the most difficult, set of circumstances to get to where you want to go.
And a new format this year too, just to make it more difficult.
And PSG aren't even in the final yet. They still got to play 90 minutes against a really good Arsenal team. I don't care if it's on the road, if they're at home. It's tough. Like, this is a tough competition to win. And
we've seen PSG lose at home. It was last season. Barcelona beat them, so it's been done. Dortmund beat them.
It's doable. But it's like
it's not a fortress.
This is where you have to pull back and just, I think, remember just how amazing this season has been. And if this is sort of the thing we leave it on, I think it would be proper. Whatever happens on Wednesday night, PSG have done an absolutely remarkable job of turning this thing from a underachieving star project, an underachieving Galacticos star-based team with very little depth and just a lot of general bad feelings and disappointment, to the youngest team in the Champions League, which ironically, for some reason, has the most experience. I guess Marquinhos has been in like 8,000 Champions League matches. So I guess he sort of takes up the experience for everybody. I think he's like the outlier that skews the average, I think, because PSG definitely do not have them. Without Marquinhos, they definitely don't have the most Champions League experience. But I also think Marquinhos has more Champions League experience than anyone else in the field here of the 4 teams. So
and fun fact, I think Arsenal and PSG are the 2 European teams with the most Champions League pedigree without actually winning the trophy, to kind of make this match on Wednesday even more interesting.
Well, when did Juventus won it, obviously, but like how long ago was that? Like, I'm trying to think who else would be in that category. Not even, who would even, I guess,
Aston Villa.
Aston Villa's won it.
No, that's what I mean. They won it,
but who would be in that category of best teams to never win it? Like, PSG and Arsenal really are right now.
I think Benfica is up there, right?
I think they've won it. I think they won it like a long time ago. I think I do. I'm trying to even think he would be on that list. Like, the both the Milans won it. Juventus won it.
So Arsenal, it's Arsenal, PSG 1 and 2, then Lyon, Benfica, Olympiacos, Atletico Madrid, Dynamo Kiev, Galatasaray, PSV, Shakhtar Donetsk.
Yeah, I would say probably Atletico's. Atletico has probably come the closest without winning it, right? They were a Ramos header in like the 90-something minute away from doing it. So, like, I can't be. I'm going to be nervous on Wednesday because I really want to go to a Champions League final, and I really want to be 90 minutes away and to have those visions of actually winning the thing, because it would really be. You don't even want to put yourself in that mind frame, but it's like, I'm sorry, it just means more to PSG fans than anyone else. I'm sorry. Like,
Inter fans know what it's like to win it. Barcelona fans know what it is. We've had horrific losses in this tournament, and what's great is it's almost poetic. I mean, PSG have tried to win this thing by spending big and bringing in superstars, and they finally get rid of the superstars and they build this team. And I don't know about you, but like after the match yesterday, all of the media was praising this PSG team, and we've seen this kind of tide turning where like everyone's starting to notice like there's some really good young players. This is a really good team. Who doesn't like Luis Enrique? Everyone loves him, and it's like we're now being loved, and people are rooting for us. Especially English teams want us to knock out Arsenal. Like there's this wave of support behind PSG now. Everyone is pushing them, and it's finally like, we paid our dues. We've said we're sorry. We're doing it right, and we're reaping those rewards now.
Well, what really is sort of amazing about all of this is that you all the years of sort of hoping, right? And in all the years of hoping and then getting your heart broken. And that's why it means more. Because all the Arsenal stuff, they haven't been to a final since what, like 2007, 2009, maybe? It was against Barcelona, I think. It's been a while. It's been probably over 15 years since they've been to a final. And you feel like with your PSG, you get your heart ripped out every year. And it's like you assume that they're going to have more chances, but are they going to have a chance this good? You never know. I mean, in theory, they should. They should have another 5 to 7 years worth of these chances. They should be perennially semifinal, final with the way the roster is, how young it is, and what are the teams right now that are really their equal? It's Barcelona, who's sort of right with them, right there. You assume Real Madrid will probably buy a few more superstars and try to figure it out. Like, it's you got to win it at some point, you think. And this feels like here's the thing. I'll put it like this. I think I put this on Twitter too. I'm going to trust that they're going to put on the performance that they need to. I'm going to trust them.
Yeah,
and
same.
It's a very hard organization to trust. And I'm going to trust them. Doesn't mean they're going to win, but I trust that that they have the right attitude, the right mindset, and that's really all you can ask for. Sometimes the breaks don't go your way, but this is a team that is doing everything the right way, and it's not based off of hope. It's not based off of, if Mbappe and Neymar get hot, maybe they can overcome the better team that they're playing. This is, if PSG execute their game plan and they get the breaks and they play it the right way, there's a really good chance that they're going to be in the Champions League final by Wednesday night. And like, once you get there, it's like you've climbed the mountain. To me, this game on Wednesday is the final test, because the Champions League final is such a crapshoot. It really is. It's like anything can happen.
It's one game, anything can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always usually pretty cagey. They're very rarely there's very rarely like a good Champions League final game. It's just sort of like, whatever team manages to scuff the ball across the line ends up winning it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, to me, this is the, one final test. And if they can do
Okay.
it, I think you have to just, you take it. And it's like, I really hope they do it. I think that,
How
I think this fan base deserves it.
how amazing would that be if they can get to the final, win the thing, and then they're coming to the U.S. for the Club World Cup
But
and be able
but
to have
yeah.
that? The
And
marketing capability, it's unbelievable.
it'd be amazing. But let's not even go that far. You got a home game with a 1-0 lead. You don't even
Yeah.
have to win the game. All you got to do is draw it. You don't even have to win.
Yeah.
You have that advantage with the crowd behind you. The crowd wasn't behind them in 2000 when they did that, single elimination tournament. No one in the stadium. They were playing it in Portugal with masks on. It was weird. I was in my house watching it most of the time. There was no watch parties. There were no, fans at, 33rd and 6th at the football factory next to the Empire State Building in Manhattan. There were no watch parties out in the streets of Paris, in the bars, in the cafes. This is, for the first time, they are taking a lead into the second leg of a Champions League semifinal. And they get it at home. You can't ask for more than that. It's
We'd all sign up for it if they told us at the beginning of the season. Absolutely.
yeah.
We'll take it.
And you just want them to take advantage of it. You just want them to do it so bad.
They didn't last season against Dortmund. That was a missed opportunity. They can't let this opportunity slip through their fingers again. Arsenal are a better team, but
than Dortmund, yeah.
Arsenal are a better team than Dortmund, but I think PSG can beat them, and I think they will. So we'll get prediction some other time. Unless you want to give it now. Do you want to give a prediction in case for some reason we can't connect? You want to give a prediction for next Wednesday?
I think it's going to be like 1-1. I still think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be cagey. I think PSG score the first goal. I think Arsenal score the second goal, and I think PSG shut it down and end up getting it across the line.
Yeah.
I don't think it's PSG. It's not going to be, we thought, it's not going to be a coronation. It's not going to, it might be, hey, I was wrong before. So they might just beat them 4-0 and it's a party. But knowing how these things tend to go, 1-1 sounds about right to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you as well. I think 1-1 PSG will advance, and it'll be exciting. So next Wednesday, but before then, PSG on Saturday are going to go to Strasbourg. We're definitely going to be keeping an eye on Ousmane Dembélé, see how much he can play.
No, he shouldn't play. He should be practicing, not playing.
Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the status. I'm sure Luis Enrique will be asked about that.
No, but they should. That's a heavy rotation game. Those guys, the starters should get minutes, but they shouldn't get 90s.
Yeah.
Use your bench. Put Beraldo in there. Put Lucas Hernandez in there. I don't want to see a full squad against Strasbourg. I'm sorry. I don't. I was talking about the bad form they were in Ligue 1, in those sort of 3 games in between the Villa and the Arsenal game. I would just say, honestly, like, I'll keep an eye on it, but, like, just nobody get hurt. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Yeah, now that the undefeated season is over.
Yeah, nobody cares. Yeah. Nobody cares. Just stay healthy. Get your work, stay healthy. Nobody cares. I'm sorry, Ligue 1. I'm sorry, Ligue 1 McDonald's. I'm sorry, Strasbourg. Nobody cares.
No happy meals for you.
This game is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I don't care what the score is. I don't care if they lose by 5. I generally don't care. Just don't get anyone hurt. That's all I'm asking. Knock on wood.
Yeah. No injuries. Absolutely. Yeah. And then just real quick before we get out of here, I just wanted to, everyone, if you're still listening at this point in the show, head over to The Telegraph. There's a great piece by Jason Burt, and it's titled "The Making of Khvicha Kvaratskhelia, PSG's Kvaradana." It's a really interesting piece. A look at the player and how he came from Napoli and how he got that nickname, and I thought it was interesting that it talks about how Kvara is really interested in his image and he wants to build a brand. He has his own content team. So if you're interested in learning more about Kvara, PSG's big signing this season, definitely give that article a read. Highly recommend that one. All right, Mark, thank you so much for coming on and recapping that exciting match against Arsenal. Really appreciate it. Remember, you can follow Mark on X at Marc Damon 9. Thank you all out there for listening and subscribing. Really appreciate your support. We'll have a lot more on all things PSG, but until next time.
Au revoir for now.